All right, we are set. Good morning, everyone. This is Monday, July 6th. We will start our briefings for the day. We'll start with support services first. I'll go around and just announce, that way we don't talk over everybody. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. We have Frank Pinter. We have Jennifer Byerly, Kelly Frazier, Randy Netherland, and Kevin Schutte, and myself. All right, Frank, take her away.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. The first item we have on our agenda is the 2020 Oath of Credit Card Inventory. That was forwarded to you. This is an annual review and authorization to maintain our credit card authorities throughout the county. Jennifer?
Thank you, Frank. So yeah, this is just the annual oath of inventory, and we're just asking for permission to put this on the July 14th action agenda for the commission to sign. So are there any questions on this? It's pretty routine, standard. It's just required to be signed by the commission.
Let's see. I don't think I have any.
Okay. Great. So we'll just put it on the agenda for next week. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay. The next thing that we have is the Seattle Shellfish Amendment number 2 agreement, and we had briefed this back in October of 2019, October 7th. And so I just wanted to put this on as a refresher since it's been so long. We received the signed agreement back from Seattle Shellfish, and the agreement is reducing the rent from 15% that the county would receive to 14.17% from Seattle Shellfish. And then Seattle Shellfish would pay leasehold excise tax of 12.83%. And then the county receives about 46% of that leasehold excise tax back from the state, which would then make the county whole in receiving their approximate 15% of the total original lease agreement. So this agreement addendum is just making the leasehold excise tax, known that it's due from Seattle Shellfish and payable to Mason County. It would be due either way, but this just really makes it concrete and legal, and it also reduces the total impact to Seattle Shellfish's profit, because in the original agreement they did not, and the county did not realize that that the leasehold excise tax was payable. So that's the agreement in a nutshell. Is there any questions on the addendum?
So this really doesn't decrease the amount that we get, but it does help them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, otherwise they would end up paying the 15% rent to the county, and in addition to that, the 12.83% of leasehold excise tax. So it does reduce the amount that they'll pay overall, and it makes it very concrete in the agreement. So it's good for everybody.
Madam Chair, just to be clear, when this did first come up, we never had any of those conversations, but we did not know. So this is just being done in order to correct a mistake that occurred when we first entered into the agreement.
Oh, great. Okay. Looks like we lost Kevin.
Yeah, I don't see.
Yeah, he did drop off.
All right. Do we want to wait a minute? He's coming back.
Yep.
And I just noticed that I put the next steps would be to place on the July 13th consent agenda, and that should say, July 14th consent agenda. So,
okay. And would that also change the dates on the resolution?
No, the resolution dates Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it would.
Okay.
Yes. I'll go ahead and change that as well when I put that on. Thank you.
Okay, and maybe the signature page too looks a little.
Yes, I'll fix the signature page so that it's not crossed out.
All right. So
Okay,
we're good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. So then Kevin is still trying to get back in. I'll wait just a few minutes.
Okay. Don't
Hey,
you
A
love?
moment.
sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but I hope you got everything figured out while I was gone. Did all the decisions.
You know, we zipped right through it. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're done.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn. Just kidding.
Okay, so just to recap, we're going to move forward with the Seattle Shellfish amendment that we briefed back in October of 2019 that we finally got signed, and put that on the consent agenda for July 14th.
Okay.
Then we had a counteroffer on the purchase of property on Hillcrest. Last week, we brought forward the 2 offers on the property, and the commission asked that we have a best and final come forward. One did not come back with a counteroffer. The other increased their offer from 5,000 to 8,000. Should we put it forward for
Please do.
authority to sell?
I agree.
Good with me.
Good with me.
Okay. Next item is a request to fill the clerk of the board position. Diane.
Is her last day, so I'm requesting to fill that position as it is essential.
Good with me.
Thank you.
The next item is the pandemic exposure control mitigation and recovery policy. That is a draft that we've put forward in front of the board for your review and comments. Is there any discussion or any suggested modifications, changes?
Just a quick question from me. I know we had some conversations a couple of weeks ago. If you could just run down maybe how some of the other offices' concerns were incorporated into that or weren't, or just kind of maybe run down what has changed.
Materially, what changed was instead of it being a recovery plan, we put it forward as a policy so that we can acknowledge requirements of employees to follow the policy. A plan is a proposed process as opposed to a policy. Materially, nothing really changed. We did discuss with all of the departments and asked each of them to review it and concur with what is in the plan. Nobody brought back or requested that there be any changes made to it at this point. So that's why we're bringing in front of the board.
I have some concerns. I was approached by some different offices and by some individuals. Do you know, was this sent to the unions for their review?
Yes, and the only one that had issue with it was that responded was the guild, the Sheriff's Guild. There will need to be some accommodation to them based on their unique environment that they work in. So we're working through some of those open items.
I spoke to some other counties as well, and I guess my concern also is that things change quickly at the state level. And I'm afraid that if we put something in as policy, we're gonna have to change it next week because they've decided that things change, as you go from different phases too. If we get pushed back to phase 2 because we've had an outbreak or something like that. And so I don't know, I have concerns about things changing quickly
How
at
to
the
keep
state
it
level.
flexible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And L&I is doing changes as well. They're coming up with new guidelines. And so what's that?
And that's one of the things that came up last week, because if you remember, we had put forward this a week ago. And there was finally some guidance that came out from the governor's office that correlated the L&I and the Department of Health and Safety and a couple of the other state agencies. When we finally did go through it with a fine-tooth comb, not much did change. There was some small criteria regarding social distancing and how to interact within an office environment where people are not in their offices, but rather interacting. So there were some minor modifications there. I agree, this is a moving target, and how do we kind of put something together where there's a constant movement of the goalpost?
Yeah.
So is the suggestion to put it back as a plan rather than policy?
What is the ramifications of that?
The ramification of it is it loses its effectiveness in being able to hold employees accountable.
So, Madam Chair, are you recommending that we do nothing?
What I'd like to do is just hold off for a bit until we get some solid plans, some solid guidance from the state. Even L&I and the governor's office are not seeing eye to eye yet. And so I hesitate to put in a policy until we've got further direct guidance.
What would that mean for potentially reopening county offices to the public?
Really, it doesn't mean anything. We have to follow what they have right now. I believe at one of the meetings, we were advised by the auditor's office, the state auditor's office, to do screenshots to protect us, because they even said, things are changing daily, sometimes hourly. And so I don't know that putting a policy in place right now is going to affect us adversely. We can always ask our attorneys, but just from what I'm hearing from WASAC and others, it's putting a policy in place right now is not going to affect us one way or the other.
And we could hold up on effectuating this policy or plan until we get to the point where we're looking at opening up the county entirely to citizen participation.
And I think right now most offices are already following doing things by appointment only.
Correct.
So there's, if we do have an outbreak, we've got that log as well.
Yeah, I'm fine.
In the meantime, to back up the commissioner's comments, can we also have this sent over to legal for review and any comments they may have?
I can do that. That's what we'll do is we'll send this back to legal for review and then bring it back again next week and see if we're any closer. I did want to add one item. It's just as an update to the board. I am working with Jennifer at the EDC in drafting a proposal. The question we had last week in how to deal with the funds to grant to businesses, whether the county should cut the check or the EDC should. And Leo did the review, and his recommendation was that we grant a sum of money to the EDC and then let the EDC, based on your criteria, distribute those funds. So Jennifer and I are working on a draft of that, and then we'll have it to the board during the week and then bring it forward on next Monday, again in draft form, after each of the commissioners have had a chance to review it and input into it their concerns and wishes.
Great.
Okay, so that is moving forward.
Yeah, I have no problem with that as long as we do it quickly. We need to get that money out there as soon as we can, please.
Yep. That's all we have.
Meetings Act restrictions are extended right now just till tomorrow. But part of the new order, it allows public agencies in phase 3, which Mason County is, at their option, in addition to hosting the remote meeting, an in-person meeting option, as long as we can meet the Safe Start guidelines, which is no more than 50 feet, and those that are in attendance are 6 feet apart, which would be much like what we were doing prior to Zooming everybody. So I wanted to know what the board wants to do, if you want to allow an in-person along with the remote, because I would imagine this restriction will be extended, and hopefully we'll know by tomorrow.
I'm hoping so too. I did have concerns with it. I went through it and there are lots of highlights. And I know that Wasac is they have some issues with it as well. One of my concerns is having to provide a place for overflow.
Is one thing they say to address, which I know, I mean, we were managing it by asking that limited staff attend. And of course, if we're restricting public from attending, and as long as on your Tuesday agendas, I wouldn't want to schedule anything that would attract a crowd, because we couldn't manage that. I mean, right now, we could put a couple people in the lobby to view, and we would still do the live in stream, and we can still zoom in people who aren't attending in person. But I didn't know for the board yourself if you want to be able to attend in the actual chambers and just meet your distancing.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier too. I'd like to maybe have Kelly go over and measure between the chairs to see if we can get 3 or 6 feet between all of us. And if not, what are the other options? Do we move from the dais down to where the public sits, which will take up more space for the public? So maybe if we could have Kelly come over and do some measuring, see if we can make it work.
I can do that this morning after this meeting and stuff.
Great. You guys good with that?
Yeah, I think the room can get tight. We just want to make sure that we're not putting anybody in a tough situation by inviting the public back in before we're ready and we know exactly what the capacity is going to be in the room. And I'm happy to stay in my secure undisclosed location. If it lets one more member of the public in, that's fine. But I'd rather get it right, or as close to right as we can, and have people participate safely versus just sort of feeling our way through it and seeing how it goes.
I always fall on the side of trying to open it as much as possible, but I got to admit, the more I think about certain individuals in our office and the risk that we put them in, the more I am falling on the side of protecting them. I don't the idea of somebody being able to come through and walk right on into certain people's office right now is a very dangerous situation for their whole family, and I have to consider that. So,
Right, right. No, Grace Harbor just had an influx as well, and it was, I won't go into the details, but it could happen here too. So we need to be as careful as we can.
Yeah, and I think, even along the lines of Commissioner Netherland's comment as well, I think, before, given that we had the elections office accessible through the front doors of the county building, now that that's going to be accessible through the back parking lot, primarily, I think it would be prudent to limit entry into our office areas to staff only. Constituents, if and when we do reopen here in the future, constituent by appointment certainly, but just sort of limiting access to folks who can wander back, and especially since we're now able to get folks into the elections office through the back door and handle it that way. We're not creating an issue of access that way. Just kind of limiting who can kind of flow through our office area, I think, would be really a prudent measure as well.
and Commissioner, we're welcome. If we do that, we can even do a little more proactive and have our personal interactions with the public in that meeting room up front,
Right.
so that they never even come back, which is wise for our staff right now.
Absolutely. And I think it would be really, if we could get some signage that's, says staff only beyond this point, or something along those lines, so that the public is aware, that there's sort of a line of demarcation, so to speak, for getting back and making sure they're in the right place and we're in the right place, and that kind of thing.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? Well, thank you very much. I don't see Renee on.
Okay.
Just a quick heads up while we're figuring that out. So just for the commission and staff, I am going to be out of town next week. And so I won't be at either the Monday briefings or the Tuesday regular meeting. So just a heads up. So if you're looking for me, you'll know not to find me.
That works. A little jealous, I might have to say.
You found the one place that's open that will allow travelers?
I did, yeah. Almost found the end of the internet trying to look for it too. So.
Yeah.
How many hours?
Yeah, I'll never tell.
So as far as the therapeutic, the criminal justice treatment fund goes, there are two people that we do need to appoint, or two positions that we need to fill or appoint. I guess they've been involved in these meetings from probably day one. There is a defense bar and also a substance abuse treatment provider. So those are two open positions that we need to fill.
When you say a defense bar, does that mean a lawyer from the bar? Okay.
Yeah. And Peter has been going to those meetings from day one, I guess. And then also for the substance abuse treatment provider, it's Dennis Neal with North Mason Resources. I'm not sure whether we need to place them on the action agenda. Diane, do you know, to have them appointed?
Meeting in official capacity, so if you make an appointment, then I guess if there's any question, then you know that they're been appointed.
Right, and I know we do have a big a vote coming up on how the treatment is going to be used, and they would be votes that would be necessary.
And this is two people. How many are on that committee, do you know?
I do. There are, according to the RCW, let's see, the county alcohol and drug coordinator, the county prosecutor, county sheriff, county superior court, a substance abuse treatment provider appointed by the county legislative authority, a member of the criminal defense bar appointed by the county legislative authority. Those are the folks that are on the committee.
That's an odd number. So commissioner on there also, which I counted 6 unless I counted wrong.
Yeah, no, there's a commissioner. Let me.
Okay, so commissioner, that would make 7. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 is a big number to be missing then.
Yeah.
I'm supportive. If you know these people, are you comfortable with putting them on?
Well, we all know Peter Jones, and then
Oh, so Peter's,
what's that?
yeah, I thought Peter was just attending. I didn't know he was the one that was on the application. I absolutely support Peter Jones.
And then there's Dennis Neal.
I'm comfortable with both.
Okay, me too.
Great, thank you. So Diane, can we go ahead and put those on the agenda for tomorrow?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, we don't have anything. We have community services at 10 o'clock. Frank, did you have anything else? I'm sorry.
You're muted, Frank.
Sorry. The only thing we have next is, we don't have anything next. The community services is on at 10 o'clock. Do you want to reconvene at 10?
Works for me.
Unless you can get them earlier.
I tried text or emailing them, and I don't see them coming on. So I'll give them a call.
Okay.
But at least they'll be here at 10.
Okay, we'll keep watching, and if you get them on sooner, we can go ahead.
Yep.
So should we all log off and then try to log back in? How do you want to do it?
The easiest would be to log off and then try to log back in.
And you promised to let us back in, Frank?
I promise. 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Shall we come back in at,
We just
You set me off because I had my hat on it.
Yeah.
so shall we say 10 till?
10 to 10.
Okay.
Open it back up again.
Okay,
A little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, welcome back. We are moving into our community services briefing. We'll go around the room and I'll state who's here. That way we don't have anyone talking over each other. So we have Commissioner Netherland, Commissioner Schutte, Dave Windom, Todd Parker, Lydia, and who's on the phone?
Lydia's on the phone.
Oh, okay. That works. All right, take her away. Go ahead, Dave.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's start with Todd. And this will be the coordinated entry proposal.
Well, it was my understanding that it was just tabled until this week, so we just put it back on the agenda for any further discussion.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's grab a chair. So, quick, commissioners, any comments, questions about? I mean, we briefed this last week, and we were asked to table it and come back again this week.
I'm still supportive.
Yep, looks good to me.
Okay. Run my volume up here.
I don't have anything to change.
Okay. That makes it easier. Okay, so we'll set that one aside, and we'll bring that back to the action agenda. Okay, next one is amendment to the Consolidated Homeless Grants, contract number 46108-20. And again, Todd.
Yeah, that's a Housing and Essential Needs Program, or HEN, that Community Action Council administers in our community. So there's another almost $300,000 allocation. And so this is just a sign the amendment to, allow that to come into the community. The Commerce is just kind of waiting for any adjustments that the state may do, or any reductions before they actually will release the funds, but they just kind of want to get all their ducks in a row, so they can move as quickly as possible. But for your knowledge, this additional 300 brings just the HEN program alone to $1 million coming into our community to support those that need the housing and essential needs, which is those that are medically unable to work and need housing. So they're qualified at DSHS and then referred to community action for the housing portion.
Great.
Good to me.
Questions?
None from me.
Okay, we'll forward that on to the action agenda then for next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Hill, and this is a confirmation of something we briefed last week.
Yeah, to fill Kurt Eck, his last day was last Tuesday, and so we're wanting to refill that position for a building inspector 2, 3, or 4. And they'd be assigned to do building inspections and or plans examining as needed.
And this is paid for not out of general fund, but out of building fees. Is that correct? This is an enterprise fund position.
Correct.
So we're clear on the hiring freeze side of it.
Yep. So, and we did run this through HR. HR is ready to go forward with the job announcement today. That's approved.
And I think they did.
Okay, we're on.
I think I saw that in my email. So.
Okay.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and advertise that position then. All right. Next item, Lydia.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I have two things. I have a contract amendment for the Access to Baby and Child Dental Services with Washington Healthcare Authority. We've been doing this for many, many decades. And this is just extending the contract for 2 more years through June 30th, 22.
Good with me.
Good with me.
Okay, thank you. We'll move it to action agenda for next week. And then the next one is it's a contract amendment for the Family Education Support Services contract. They had a 1-year contract. This is for the 2nd year. This is funding that comes from the Healthcare Authority down to do the preventative substance use prevention with the coalitions in both North Mason and Shelton, and all of the parenting classes that go along with that. And so this is our next scheduled. We didn't get to do a lot of the classes the second half of last year, a fiscal year, because of course COVID, but they did pretty good. They did a few of them on Zoom, which were actually more successful than sometimes doing them in person, which was interesting to learn. So this is adding actually 6 classes for this next fiscal year. And 2 of the new ones are they're going to do 2 in Spanish in each of the North End and South End.
That's cool.
Great. Good with me.
Hey.
Great. Thank you. We'll move that forward to the action agenda for next week. And that's all I had.
Thanks, Lydia.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I just had a couple of things. Yeah, over those. So you each should have received a packet this morning of a preliminary plan. Staff is reviewing that this afternoon, and we'll be making refinements to that, and then we'll bring it back to briefing next week. So if you have comments, questions, please do send those back to me. I guess you could do a track changes and send that in, and I'll start incorporating some of those as well. I haven't addressed technology yet. We'll be talking about that this afternoon. So again, it's a preliminary draft, so it's in there for changes. So, and then on the Health side, we have, of course, across the state had a spike over the last week in cases. Although I see our DOH just updated the site this morning. It looks like hospitalizations are essentially flat. And so testing is going up, but we are having an uptick in the total number of cases. So we had one day that was actually higher than we've seen so far across the response. So we are watching that in Mason County. What we're not seeing is a lot of community based transmission. We're seeing a lot of it within families, especially from families that travel outside of Mason County to a function and then come back, and they're bringing that back with them. So we're catching those pretty quick, cocooning those families, and keeping that tamped down here in Mason County. So we went through the stockpiles of PPE. We look like we're doing pretty well. And like I said, our hospitalization rates are low. We don't have anyone in the hospital right now with COVID here in Mason County. We're looking pretty good on that front. Any questions on COVID?
Nope. Can we make it stop?
Yeah, no kidding. So
That would be nice.
I will send out a notice for our Board of Health meeting later this month. We'll get started on those packets this week.
Okay. And you've taken a look at the OPMA?
Yes. So we need to decide, and I will get with Peggy and see how she wants to run the Board of Health meeting this month. So we'll find out how that looks. We'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have, folks. Any questions for me? Okay, that's good for me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Right, and you're moving ahead on building, right?
Yes, we'll go ahead and get that position advertised right away. We've got at least one very qualified candidate that's interested in applying, so hopefully we'll fill that one like lickety split with somebody who's qualified and ready to rock.
And appointments are moving right along as well. Are they becoming?
Yep. No, we've got those moving along, and you'll see that in the plan. I'm addressing that as well. So we've had a number of good discussions around those things about expedited processes, how we can do that. We talked a little bit last week about doing an RFP to go to a third party reviewer for all commercial plans. So as big commercial plans come in, they immediately go out to a third party review. What we want to have in that RFP is language that says, if we send you this thing, it goes to the top of the pile. It doesn't go to the bottom of your queue and sits there too. So if we're going to pay for an expedited fee, I want expedited service out of our contractor. So we'll be putting that language in, and I think we'll be coming back next week in conjunction with the plan with an RFP. So,
will this just be for, like you said, an apartment complex is big commercial, or will it also be for large residential building sites?
So I haven't really addressed the large residential piece, but I mean, it's something we can look at. My first look at this was like for the commercial. And then as we forecast what's happening with Belfair, I think we're going to wind up as those fees come in and we start getting those large commercial pieces in, those should go directly out to a third party review, get those done as quickly as possible by people who are very experienced in those large projects. And then we may wind up hiring a building inspector to work exclusively in the Belfair area to be at those locations once they break ground.
Well, and eventually we bring back a conversation with the commission regarding a location down there with the fire department. So that might be good timing because that's a little ways out still, right?
Yeah, and I think when we get some, I'll address this in the technology piece and the plan. It will make it more adaptable to go wherever we want to go with it. So I want a plan that enables us to work from home if necessary, or in the office, or on location. So let's have something that works, regardless of where that work may take place.
Dave, one of the things I had a chance to just kind of review the plan that you submitted to us by email, just real briefly. As we move forward, you get our feedback, if we could just put some financials to it as well.
Yes. Yep.
Just understanding if, I'm not necessarily expecting it to be a cost savings type of plan, but just so we're understanding, the revenue side of it, and we're understanding, what it's going to cost to do this as it kind of takes more shape.
Right. So most of the changes are essentially budget neutral, and I'll explain those in more detail. And then on the public health side of it, of course, that's going to be grant driven. And we just met this last Thursday with the Foundation Public Health system to talk about how to do funding this next year. We have that 22 million. So basically we're going to maintain that in a communicable disease response mode, but where we're going to start pushing hard is towards prevention and chronic disease management. So those pieces will factor into the public health part as those grants come in. So we just need to be prepared to expand if necessary, should we get more grant money.
Thank you.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, that's all I got.
Anything else?
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Lydia.
Thanks, everyone.
And we now have Public Works at 10:35. Diane, can we give them a call? Or Greg?
I just tried to email them, and I can give them a call. Let me see what I can do to get them on. Hold on.
Okay. We can just go ahead and jump into the briefing. Let's go around real quick to state who's online. We have Commissioner Netherland, Commissioner Schutte, Loretta. Who's in there with you?
Mike Collins.
Okay, and then we also have Richard, right?
Yes.
That's right.
All right, Loretta, take her away.
Okay, first up, we have a private line occupancy permit that Mike will tell you all about.
We have a request from John Drake for a private line occupancy permit to install underground water line and power. This is going to replace the existing water line that was installed approximately in 1960. Property is located at 11451 North Shore Road, and recommend the board to approve the private line.
Good with me.
Supportive.
Felt like that was a pretty good run for that water line, 60 years almost.
Pretty good, yeah, pretty good.
That's pretty amazing.
All right.
Okay, so next up, commissioners, we have an agreement that we are recommending to execute between the Association of Counties and Mason County. And the purpose of this agreement is to complete an inventory and assessment of fish barriers of culverts that are located under county road rights of way. And you may recall, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, we had a similar agreement with Wasac to perform this work. And there was only a certain amount of funds available, and we completed a good majority, the vast majority of all of the barriers. And what was left was a little bit up in the north end on the Tahuya Peninsula and possibly some on Harstein Island. And the purpose of this agreement would then be to complete that barrier assessment. And we will most likely be contracting with either the Salmon Enhancement Group or Conservation District to complete this work, but we will also have folks tagging along as well as an opportunity to make sure that we're training and understanding what the assessment looks like, and that's about it. We also, if there are funds left over, which I believe we may have in this contract, we will use those funds to GPS locate the culverts and update our gizmo or our road asset database so that we've got that information as well. The overall keeper for all of this information is Department of Fish and Wildlife, and they maintain a statewide database of all fish barriers and partial barriers and the information that goes with it. So this is a great opportunity.
I am supportive.
Okay.
I'm very supportive.
That's mine.
All right, great. We will get rolling on that. And kudos to Eric Schwartz, who's been working very closely with both Wasatch and Fish and Wildlife on this project.
Great job.
Okay, next up, Richard. We want to share some recommended changes in schedule, commissioners, and hours of operation for our solid waste transfer stations.
Yeah, so just so you know, really this all started with the governor's order, and we had Department of Health come out and kind of look at our situation and how best we could comply with social distancing. And it became apparent that there was no way we could do that at our Eels Hill facility without just reducing down to one person. We monitored it, that one person very carefully, and found that Saturdays was our busy day for that person, and that's why we have in our proposal we have a extra help scheduled from 10 till 2 to kind of swap out and relieve that person. They'll be doing other duties at that same time. Bottom line is we're able to get rid of 10 hours of scheduled overtime and 12 hours of scheduled extra help, reducing our expenses hopefully by nearly $20,000 annually. And also we'd be able to open our facilities a little bit longer. Pretty much our Belfair and your Hoodport and Union facilities would see a pretty big increase, really over 20%, where Shelton would just see a small percent. I think it's like 8% increase in open time. So we're trying to optimize our resources and give ourselves the best chance to make a little more money for our coffers.
I like that. I think that's, I think you guys have continued to show a very thoughtful approach to managing these issues. So I'm supportive.
I think it's great.
I agree.
All right, thank you.
I thank Zach and Richard. Commissioner Schutte, your comment about thoughtful is spot on. Zach and Richard took quite a bit of time looking at several different schedule scenarios, and were very thoughtful in thinking through how that would look to our employees and then also our customers. And I really appreciate the time and effort that they put into this schedule, and I think it's a great solution.
Right. I think we all appreciate the cost savings and the extra hours, giving people more time to take their garbage.
Yes. Okay, that is it for briefing items. We do have a couple of quickie follow-up items Mike would like to share with you, commissioners.
We've recently got the estimate back from WashDOT about the Hoodport speed display signs. Their number is about 34,000 to install both of these signs and put the PD meters on them, the whole 9 yards. So we have recently purchased some portable speed display signs. So one option we were thinking about doing is approach WashDOT is to maybe get a permit from them for us to install the portable signs in these locations, and then we could move them and move them around a little more so they'd be a little more effective possibly. And we were just kind of looking at the board's thoughts on that, or do we want to move forward with the permanent signs?
So where's the bulk of the cost? I mean, it seems like that the 34,000 is a little bit higher than maybe what we had been thinking as this sort of progressed for months and months now. Why is the cost there?
What they've got is traffic. So the purchasing the signs is about $7,500 combined. Mason County PUD, they've got service drops, meters, breakers for $2,200. Then they got installing the signs for about $64. Signal shop, electrical connections for $9,000. And then sign build installed, I don't know what this is, for another $3,000. So it comes up to be about 28, but then they have engineering and contingency of another 5,600. So that's where it comes up to almost 34. So it's spread out. The electrical is probably the worst, 9,000.
Randy, do you recall what that was in Belfair?
Yes, it was, I believe it was 24,000. But at the same time, we had that switched around. We got them to pay for all the flashing lights and stuff, and then we paid for the speed sensor. But I want to remind you, or let you know that I do still think it's important, and I'll go whichever direction you want to go on this. This is your community, and I'm still supportive if you think it's needed.
Yeah, I do. And I'm not real high, honestly, on the idea of moving the portable ones there and, trying to get, just trying to do, manage that whole side of it. I think I'm more inclined to bite the bullet and go this route and have something permanent there for the community. And I think we had some other ideas for the portable ones, and being able to just get those deployed and manage it there without having to worry about Hoodport, I think would be my preference.
Yeah, that contingency is contingency. Right. It doesn't mean they're going to charge her for that anyway. But again, having it permanent, that's what the community was hoping for. Besides that, though, that's an area that's got high traffic during the summers, and those little tiny portable ones may be overworked at that point too, and those batteries have to be replaced. I just would rather see you do the permanent also if we're going to do it. The cost isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. It's going to be more if we have to do it in 5 years.
Right. We can move forward on that. We just had an email from Grays Harbor County. They just started up their chip seal program, but their chip spreader is down, and it looks like it's going to be down for a while. We do have an intergovernment agreement with them. They're requesting whether they could rent ours and an operator. And we're just letting you know that we're thinking about going ahead and dealing with them on that.
I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't, affect your operations and ability to complete projects. I think helping our neighbors is a good thing, and if you can manage through it, I'm fine with it.
Yep.
I am as well, as long as you believe that it's not going to interfere with what we need to do. I'm comfortable.
Yeah, at this point in time, we just started the culvert project this morning. And so for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be tied up with doing that and doing some pre-level in another location. So it would be it'd be a convenient time for us to go ahead and let them kind of get that thing started and work some of the bugs out if there is any. So
How long will they have it?
at least a couple weeks.
Okay.
They still haven't got an estimate on how long the repair is going to be.
But we're sending our people out, right, to make sure that the equipment is well taken care of and maintained in a way that we already maintain it and operate it.
Yes, yeah, that's one of our requirements, was in the conversation with them, that we would definitely have an operator has to be there the whole time.
You don't want to loan your friend your car. You don't know what kind of shape comes back in.
Make sure you do the enterprise walk around and everything beforehand, and
exactly.
all the dings and dents.
All right, thank you. Clifton, apparently the private property owner had some painting done, restriping there on Clifton and the Safeway. We last week put up another sign, said there is no left-hand turn there. So we're going to work with the property owner about getting that corrected. So, again.
Did you guys see a picture of that? It was beautifully done. They took away our sign and put up a nice left turn lane right over the yellow divider.
Yeah.
Wow.
They beat us to it.
I love our rural communities.
Just when we thought that saga was done, it continues.
Oh, that's
Right.
good.
Commissioners, anything for us?
I don't. So oh, go ahead, Randy.
I have a couple of things. One is a thank you. The folks out there at Sherwood Creek are very much appreciative. They say that you've made it so much safer by handling that overgrowth situation. I've heard from several of them. They're very appreciative. I guess it was really gotten dangerous. So thank you for that. I've had people that have been contacting me about the many different speed limits going up out of Belfair to the traffic circle. Is there any contact that you can make with WashDOT to see if we can unify these things a little bit? Because I guess it goes 35, 50, 35, 15. It jumps around. If we can find a way just to unify and simplify, it'd be appreciated. Another thing is we had in the last few weeks or so, we had another couple of accidents, I guess, on Highway 300 and on Clifton on that intersection. One of them I happened to drive by and one of the cars was actually on one of the big balls. It was on top of it. And that person wasn't even the one that did anything wrong, which was a shock to me because I don't know how you could have gotten there unless you're doing something wrong. But I guess it was somebody else had done something that caused all that to happen. If you could look into that and find out when does that trigger some kind of help or work with the state. Also, 300 is supposed to be asphalted here soon. Could you find and give me an update eventually on when they will be doing that asphalt replacement on 300?
Yes, and actually the SR 300 Clifton Old Belfair Highway intersection project. I'm glad you mentioned that, Commissioner. We had been contacted by DOT about the project, and they are grinding and paving. And when they do that, they need to take a look at all of the pedestrian ADA requirements. And to do that, they were looking in particular at the ADA ramp there that goes to Bill Hunter Park. And meeting their requirements would mean that there would be this long taper that would go back into the existing little pathway in the park. And they wanted to know how to handle that. And we suggested that, well, some options were that we cut back that paving and then we would be left with either some type of a barrier, as in like a fence, or the other would be to do a slight design deviation that would not strictly meet it would drop it by 1/2 of an inch, if that.
Only going to change it like, I think it was 14.
Yeah, 14/100ths of an inch in grade. So we are recommending a design deviation, which would be much more cost effective, would not impact travel. It would still provide a safe ADA ramp. But that was our recommendation. And we wanted certainly to touch base with commissioners about that as well.
Wasn't that just put in 6 years ago? It wasn't put in up to the code then?
Well, yes, it absolutely met ADA code at that time, Commissioner. And those design standards change quite frequently. And it's really a challenge for grinding projects because every time, like I said, you touch that intersection, you have to relook at those codes. DOT is in agreement with us or accepts our recommendation. But again, we want to make sure and touch base with commissioners on that. In case Mike has anything else to add on that.
Loretta, you need to get a
They
lazy.
put him on the spot.
Right, I am.
They were going to have to come in and rip the whole sidewalk out, and for 1400s, it
makes no
we just
sense.
didn't recommend that. That just doesn't make any sense to go that far. Plus, it was going to negatively affect the park itself too. It was going to have to go farther into there. All those balls would have to be moved. There was other things that are going to have to be adjusted. So it just, we've not had any records of ADA problems or complaints or issues on that sidewalk. So we basically recommended to them to put their money somewhere else.
Yeah, 7 years ago it was dirt.
Yeah. It changes. The ADA is it's really dynamic. It changes about every 5 to 6 years. They add something else. So that's all I got.
Commissioner Netherland, just one quick clarification. You said, so SR3 heading north out of Belfair towards the new roundabout, that's where the speed limit changes?
Several times.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just wanting to make sure we're talking this northbound.
I think it's both.
Yeah, it's actually really confusing because we have several different through there, which makes no sense.
Okay. We will follow up with DOT.
Have you heard anything back on the railroad when they're going to start their construction on Lynch and Cole?
No, that was a grant application, and I believe we should be hearing fairly soon on that application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And that also, we did have I need to follow up. I had a email from Lake Limerick about the other rail project and need to follow up with them as well on that. So it sounds like the Navy had reached out to Lake Limerick and they are working together for a solution to move forward on that project. But want to hear more about that. Some details.
Did we finish the Sand Hill issue?
I'll kick that one back to Mike. No, but we are on that. Yes.
That's good enough. You don't have to keep doing that to Mike. I'm comfortable with you're working on it.
Mike still.
Yes, we're in the process of ordering the signs for Sand Hill, and we're going to do some other paving work up there too. So we're going to try to tie it all in at the same time. Most likely, we're going to put the signs up and on the flashers and stuff with our own forces too. So we're close. We got them. We've got. I won't say that we got them ordered, but they're supposed to be ordered this week.
All right. Are you dizzy yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, commissioners?
I almost want to do it just to make you turn it back around on him again, but I don't.
I'm going to get a lazy Susan. Just spin it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, do we have anything that we need to address?
Do not.
Nope.
All righty.
Move we adjourn?
Second.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.